Hey friends! My name is Desiree, aka Mama Friendly, and I do all sorts of videos on my channel, from cooking videos to planner videos, vlogs, hauls, homeschool videos with a Disney twist, a little bit of everything. So if any of that sounds like fun to you, I hope you'll subscribe and join me on my YouTube adventure. Today's video is going to be a bunch of sheet pan recipes, and these recipes were actually inspired by this cookbook. So this couple, Tom and Rachel Sullivan, they have an Instagram account called Meals She Eats, which is the same name as their cookbook. And it is an account started by Tom when they were trying to conceive and Rachel received her PCOS diagnosis. They now have a 1-year-old daughter, and so I guess it worked, right? But there's a bunch of recipes in here. Mostly this book, I wouldn't want to call it a cookbook per se because it's only maybe the last third of the book that has recipes. It is, however, a really great resource for PCOS and cycle syncing in general, because that's basically the process that they used in order to get Rachel's body healthy for conception and pregnancy. And as you might know, I've been doing cycle syncing myself for all of 2023. I actually started a grocery haul series at the end of 2022, explaining each phase of the cycle, showing you a sample grocery haul. I'm actually going to finish out this year repeating the same sort of theme, if you will, so kind of giving updates, another sample grocery haul for each phase. I'm going to include a meal plan this time for each phase, because I have found that that's been my hardest struggle, is everybody tells you what ingredients you should incorporate during each phase, but ingredients and then what? You know, what recipes? What do I eat at any given time of day? What am I having for breakfast? What am I having for dinner? So I'm trying to bring you some of that information based on my own experience. So if you'd like to get this book for yourself, I'm going to have it linked down below. Like I said, I wouldn't call it a cookbook per se, although it does include a lot of recipes. But for the most part, it is a PCOS and cycle syncing resource. So in this video, I am sharing 4 sheet pan meals, one that corresponds to each different phase of the cycle, so menstrual, follicular, ovulation, and then luteal phase. There's going to be some meals that include chicken. There's going to be other meals that are meatless, but really quick and easy, each and every one of them. Very delicious, super flavorful, and I'm excited to share them with you. Friends, we're starting out our video the same way we start our cycle, with our menstrual phase. So I've got a super easy sheet pan meal here for you. We need a bunch of kale with the ribs discarded, and we're going to tear it up. We're also going to massage it a little bit, because I learned recently that if you massage it, it doesn't make you as bloated. That's what they say anyways, so I'm going to give that a try. We need a tablespoon of olive oil, 8 ounces of baby Bella mushrooms. I'm going to slice these up. A 15-ounce can of chickpeas or garbanzo beans. We're going to drain and rinse them. The recipe calls for 1 garlic clove minced, but I'm probably going to end up doing 2 or 3 to be honest. 1 teaspoon of dried thyme. We need some salt and freshly cracked black pepper to taste. And you could serve this on rice, so if you're gonna do that, you can get it started now and everything will be ready at the same time. So I'm preheating my oven to 350 Fahrenheit or 180 Celsius. I'm gonna grab my baking sheet and I'm gonna line it with parchment paper so that nothing sticks to it and to make cleanup a little easier. Okay, so I've got my mushrooms sliced up back there along with my garlic cloves. I used 2 pretty chunky ones, so it's a nice amount of garlic. I'm just ripping my kale. I gave it a scrub, a little bit of a rinse. And for the mushrooms, actually, you don't want to wash them with water. You want to get a damp paper towel or a damp kitchen towel and scrub the dirt off. But if you actually wet them, actually put water on them or submerge them in water, it's going to screw up the texture of the mushrooms forever because they're going to absorb all that water and they're just going to get tough and gross. So you really don't want that. But now everything is clean. Everything is getting chopped up. I'm just tearing the leaves right off the stems here, as you can see. I think that's plenty. That's a good amount of kale. You can save the stems for making soup later. So I'm gonna go ahead and give them a nice little squish right now, just to get that massaging process started. Now, I eat a lot of kale. This is literally my first time ever massaging it before I cook it. So I feel like this is something that you're supposed to do, and I just was never aware of it. So hopefully there's some benefit to it after all. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my tablespoon of olive oil. Obviously, clean hands for this, right? Take the tablespoon of oil. You're gonna put it over your kale. And now we're going to massage again to get the olive oil really up in everything here. This is going to help us get a nice crisp on it, which, as far as I'm concerned, I really like kale. I don't like it raw. I like it cooked almost to a crisp. So I feel like using oil to cook your kale is essential. So now we're going to add in our mushrooms and our hefty portion of garlic, and we're going to once again use our hands to scatter everything throughout, incorporate everything, and we're still massaging the kale here. Okay, we've got our chickpeas now drained and rinsed. Another new thing for me, I typically do drain them when I use them, but I've never rinsed them. I'm sure that there's a reason for it, so we went ahead and did that. The nice thing now is that my hands are extremely moisturized, but on the other hand, no amount of soap is going to take that garlic smell off of them. I'm going to sprinkle my thyme here. The recipe calls for a teaspoon. I'm just eyeballing it. I like heavily seasoned food, so I'm just making sure that everything is getting its fair shake, as it were. We're going to do the same now with our salt and with our freshly ground pepper. I love very, very peppery greens. Whenever I'm making Brussels sprouts or kale, I feel like the pepper is the most important thing. So this is pretty much ready to go. Our oven is preheated. I'm going to put it in there for 10 to 15 minutes. Like I said, I prefer things to be on the crunchy side, so I'm going to leave it for the full 15. About halfway through, I'm going to toss it around and give it a mix to make sure that everything is getting its proper exposure to the heat. If you'd like, at the end, you can even broil it for a couple minutes to give it some extra color and crunch. Just make sure you keep an eye on it so it doesn't burn. And we're going to serve our portion over some rice. Alright pals, this is actually my second time making this recipe because the first time my camera failed, but I am 100% okay with that because this is an incredible meal that I'm going to be having over and over again anyways, so I'm very happy to be cooking it and eating it once more. So this is the Follicular Phase sheet pan meal, and this one does include meat. The first one was a meatless meal. This one does have chicken breast. So starting with our sweet potatoes here, we're gonna need 1 sweet potato diced. I'm actually gonna do 2. I'm doubling the recipe personally, but just listen to what I say and know what I do. So let's say a sweet potato diced, a tablespoon of olive oil divided because you're gonna use some for one part and some for the other, salt and freshly cracked black pepper to taste. You need 6 ounces of chicken breast. I'm using breast tenderloins. Juice from 1 lemon. 1.5 teaspoons of Italian seasoning, again divided. This is not Italian seasoning. This is actually herbe de Provence, which I know is not the same thing. It's a different blend, but I'm gonna go with it. A teaspoon of garlic powder, which in my brain translates to about a tablespoon. 2 cups of broccoli florets. And then you have the option of serving this on rice, which I will in fact be doing. So first things first, I've got my oven preheated to 425 degrees Fahrenheit, and I have lined my baking sheet with parchment paper. I'm gonna chop up my sweet potatoes and I'm gonna put them onto the sheet, and then I'm gonna drizzle them with 1/2 tablespoon of olive oil, season them with salt and pepper, toss them around to coat, and I'm gonna start them roasting for 12 minutes because they are gonna take much longer than everything else on our sheet tray. So before I put them in, I am gonna space them out some while I still have the room to do that, so that the sweet potatoes don't just steam, because if you crowd food in any pan, then the liquid that it eventually is going to release, the steam, gets trapped with the other pieces of food, and so they do all end up steaming instead of roasting. And so by doing it this way, I am giving it its best possible opportunity to get little like brown crusty bits on the outside, even though it's only a 12-minute head start. So now while the sweet potatoes are roasting, I'm gonna season my chicken with some lemon juice, 3/4 teaspoons of my quote-unquote Italian seasoning, and the garlic powder. Then I'm gonna take this bowl that you may or may not see right here, and I'm gonna put my broccoli in there. I'm going to toss my broccoli with the other 1/2 teaspoon of olive oil and some more of the Italian seasoning. The recipe doesn't call for it, but I'm going to add salt and pepper to the broccoli as well. I'm a firm believer in thoroughly seasoning every layer of a dish so that no matter what bite you're taking, it's all equally delicious. And I feel like salt and pepper is something that very few bites of food should or can do without. So I'm gonna season my chicken, season my broccoli, and when the sweet potatoes have finished their 12-minute head start, they're going to move over in the sheet pan and make space for these guys. Alrighty, so here's our sweet potatoes. They've already started to kind of brown on the edges, which is really nice. I'm just gonna scoot them over so they can finish cooking over here. I'm gonna lay my chicken down right there. Hopefully everybody has room here. The first time I made this, the chicken did come out delicious, but it came out kind of pale, thoroughly cooked, but not the prettiest or most appetizing color. So if you are the kind of person that needs your meat to have a nice goldenness to it before you'll consider eating it, you might want to broil this at the end for a couple minutes. Keep an eye on it so that the sugars in the broccoli and the sweet potato don't burn, but that is an option to give it a little more color before you serve. So I've got my chicken, got my broccoli. This is a lot of broccoli. Right along there. Whoops, I lost a piece. That's fine. So now that everybody is in the pan again, obviously be super careful. This is hot. It just came out of the oven. So we're going to put this back in, and it's going to continue cooking for 15 minutes or until the chicken is cooked through, and then the broiling time at the end is optional. All right, friends, we're doing our ovulation phase sheet pan meal today, and this is probably the most straightforward recipe so far. So we're going to need 6 ounces of chicken breast cut into 1-inch slices. I'm gonna cut it basically as small as I can manage it because this is all going to cook in 15 minutes. It is at 425 degrees Fahrenheit, which, by the way, you should be preheating your oven right now, but still, I'm just worried that the chicken won't cook through completely if I don't cut it very finely, so I'm gonna cut it small, as small as I can manage. You need 1.5 teaspoons of olive oil divided, a teaspoon of Italian seasoning. I'm still using my herb de Provence because it's what I've got. 8 ounces of Brussels sprouts, stems removed. So I'm gonna cut these ugly little dry nubbins off the ends, and then it says that we're meant to slice them vertically into 1/4-inch slices. So again, I'm gonna cut them pretty finely. This is 16 ounces, so we need half the bag. but I don't know what I'm gonna do with the other half. So honestly, I might just make them all. 6 to 8 asparagus spears with the ends cut off, and then cut them into 1-inch pieces. Again, 6 to 8, that seems kind of puny, so I'm probably gonna use a little more than that. I always like to double the recipes anyway so that I have leftovers for the next couple days. 1 tablespoon of balsamic vinegar, 1 garlic clove minced, salt and freshly cracked black pepper to taste, and you can serve this on rice, which we will be doing that. So pretty much, set your oven to 425 like I said, slice up your meat and your veggies. We're going to put the chicken in the middle of the baking sheet and drizzle it with 3/4 of a teaspoon of the olive oil and the Italian seasoning, and we're going to toss that to coat. Then in a bowl, we're going to toss the Brussels sprouts and the asparagus with the rest of the olive oil, the garlic, minced garlic right here, we have to mince it, salt and pepper. Oh, and the balsamic, don't forget the balsamic. We're gonna add the veggies around the chicken, and we're gonna cook everything on a baking sheet for 15 minutes or until the chicken is cooked through. Easy peasy. We're about to start the last sheet pan meal of the menstrual cycle series. This is for the luteal phase, and this recipe seems so simple that I worry it might not be very flavorful. Ignore the background noise, kiddos running around with the iPad right now. It is what it is. So we need for this recipe 2 cups of cauliflower florets. I've got 10 ounces here. I'm just going to use the entire bag. 1 cup of cooked chickpeas, drained and rinsed. I've got canned organic chickpeas here, or garbanzo beans. I'm going to drain the can and use the whole thing. So already, like, I'm probably using more of the vegetation than we need, but that's fine because I typically use more of the seasonings than we need, so I think it'll even out. We need some salt and freshly ground black pepper to taste. A tablespoon of sriracha. Did you guys know that there's a sriracha shortage right now? I had no idea. It's like impossible to find. This is from the same company. It's basically sriracha, but it's not milled as finely, I guess. It's a chunkier, thicker sauce. I prefer this one, so it's what I have on hand, and that's what I'm going to use. A tablespoon of that, a 1/2 teaspoon of sesame seeds, 1.5 teaspoons of olive oil, and then you can serve this either on arugula or wild rice. I will likely opt for the rice. And you can garnish it with some chopped green onions. I've got my oven preheated to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to place my cauliflower and my garbanzos on the baking sheet, drizzling it with the olive oil, the salt, the pepper, and the sriracha, and I'm just going to toss it around to coat. We're going to roast it for 10 minutes, then we're going to sprinkle it with our sesame seeds and put it back in the oven for another 3. And that's it. So this is going to be very, very quick and hopefully very, very tasty. I honestly don't know where the flavor is going to be coming from, but we'll give it a try. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just mix everything in a bowl just to make my life a little easier, because why not? Salt to taste. Just going to throw some in here. Remember, we can always adjust later if we need or want to. Black pepper. The sesame seeds we're saving for later. We're going to throw in some of our olive oil. That's 1.5 teaspoons, right? Let's call it 1.5 teaspoons. And our sriracha, I want to be generous with this since we are using extra vegetation. So I'm also guessing that for the most part, the flavor is going to come from the sriracha. so I want to make sure there's enough of it. Okay, cauliflower explosion, that was my bad. I'm gonna break this bigger piece up a little bit. Throw all that in there. And now I'm gonna give this a mix so that everything's properly coated with our sauce and our seasonings. Whoops, maybe I needed a bigger bowl. That looks all right. I feel like I'm gonna be adding way more seasoning later. It doesn't call for it, but I feel like a dish is not a dish until it's got garlic, so I'm gonna throw a little bit of garlic salt in here too. Obviously this isn't part of the recipe, so you do you. Season however you feel. But garlic goes with everything, so it can only help, I think. Spread out our situation here. It's not really making friends, the cauliflower with the chickpeas, but that's fine. Just gonna kind of spread them out some so that everybody has a chance to cook without being crowded. And I guess we'll see you in 10 minutes, guys. All right, friends, there you have it. 4 delicious, fresh recipes that are going to do you well throughout your entire menstrual cycle. They come together so fast, and I am surprised myself to inform you that my favorite one was actually the very last one. I was so worried that because there were so few ingredients and they were so simple that the flavor just wasn't going to be there. But it was delicious. I mean, how could you go wrong with sriracha, right? It was really, really good. Rounding all these meals out with rice or wild rice or quinoa is a perfect way to like fill you up but still leave you feeling light. They're super nutritious meals. I think personally that they're very family friendly, and the most important thing, they're fast. So especially like during your menstrual cycle or even your luteal phase where you don't feel like cooking, this comes together really easily and is very nourishing. If you try any or all of these recipes out, I'd love for you to come on back and let me know how you liked them. And as always, I want to thank you all so much for being here and watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. And if you did, I hope you'll please give it a big thumbs up. I'd also love it if you would subscribe and click the notification bell because I post at least 3 times a week and I wouldn't want you to miss a minute. Thanks so much again for watching. Bye.